Hi, my name's Imogen and I'm the founder of imoves.
And my name's Gay and I'm lead presenter with imoves.
We are super passionate about supporting teachers to get their children much more active throughout the school day and also teaching tricky subjects like dance and gymnastics. So today we're focusing on dance and how to teach primary dance with confidence. So we've broken it down into 6 key areas, and these include music, the 6 principles of dance, storytelling, teaching methods, cats and dogs, and that's the children's engagement and motivation to be involved in the session, assessment, and then supporting resources. So here's a question: how do you feel about teaching dance in school? So let's have a look at this slide and this sliding scale. Are you a 1 or a 2 and feel a little daunted by teaching dance? Are you a 3 or a 4 and feel happy to have a go with a bit more training? Or are you super confident and at a 5 and feel that you just need a few more ideas, or you want to try and deliver a little bit of staff training in school around delivering dance yourself rather than bringing coaches in? Wherever you're at this session, we'll give you the tools to feel super confident delivering any age range in dance. So before we move on, I'd just like to introduce you to the concept of cats and dogs, where we categorise children into whether they are keen or whether they feel a little bit more apprehensive around being involved in a dance lesson. So your dogs are at the front, they want to do everything to do with dance. They're really keen, really enthusiastic, whereas your cats are standing back, they're a little bit more awkward, and they're a little bit more apprehensive in joining in and moving in front of their peers. We'll look at this in a little bit more depth later, but throughout this session we'll be referring to cats and dogs. So that's what we're talking about. So always start with your music. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, children need to be able to move in time to the music, and if they haven't got it in their head before they start, it's really difficult for them to start moving and listen to the music as well. So they need the music first, don't they?
They need to understand the structure, and this is how we're going to help you to deliver that particular part of the dance lesson now.
So remember that music is the very foundation of what we do in dance. It is the inspiration, it's the excitement, it builds the story, it tells you the moves you're going to do, and it can get those cats really engaged from the start because they hear that really great music and they think, wow, I'm going to get involved in this. Yeah. So it's really important, isn't it, to get that really good music. So try something with a really easy beat for them to follow. Taking really easy baby steps, and it'll just build their confidence so they feel really great and ready to start dancing.
Yeah, it's hooking them in very, very early with something that they feel much more confident with. So it kind of banishes any ideas they may have about dance, and it's for ballerinas when it's not. No. It's for everybody. So yeah, hook those cats in with some really good funky music from the very top. So here's what we're going to do first. I always sit my children in a semicircle to do this little bit, and we sit and we play the music mix of my choice. So today we're going to look at samba because it's got a nice strong beat, and we just get them to nod in time to the regular beat. Once we see that happening, then we ask them to find the 1 in the 8-count phrase. So that's the first beat of the 8-count phrase, and then we get them to clap along to that and shout 1 when they hear a 1. So let's have a little demonstration of that. So we'll play the music mix. I've chosen samba today. So we'll just get the children nodding in time to the regular beat. Here we go. So you'll be able to assess the group on how well they can hear that beat. So they were nodding in time to the regular beat. Once they've got that, ask them to count out the 8-count phrase. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yeah? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's it. Now, once they've got that, you can ask them to shout 1 and put their hand upon the 1. So they're really sure on where that 1 is. Make a big deal of that. We'll tell you later why.
1.
And the cats love this because they just feel like, oh, you know what? I can shout 1, I can put my hand upon the 1, I feel confident with the music, and therefore they're engaged. from the start.
1.
Brilliant, thank you.
1.
So that's the first little bit of your beat and phrase workshop. So once they feel confident with the regular beat and finding that one in the music, we can then expand that by looking at the structure of a 32 count block of music. And the reason we do that is because a lot of popular music that we use in schools to get the kids engaged is structured in a 32 count block. It might be a verse or chorus with a little bit of an instrumental, but generally that's what they're used to listening to. So therefore it's a good place to start, isn't it? Yeah, so here we go then. We're going to have a look at how we can develop their knowledge around listening for and hearing a 32 count block of music. So let's try and develop that knowledge around the 32 count block. So let's pop the music back on again. So now we're looking for a 32 count structure. So we're looking for the first count, which we're going to call the big one. Here we go. Big one. Small one. Another small one. Last one. And then round to the beginning, big one. Woo! And getting the kids to understand this structure will really help them to start creating their own movement, won't it?
Yeah, it's really important as well that they can do this themselves rather than relying on the teacher all the time, because then the teacher can take a step back away from that real focus on music and take a look at what's going on in the room and really enjoying with the children and their dance moves rather than being so solely focused on the music.
Big one. Yeah, so you keep your eye on the music, your ear on the music. Small one. Take you through that one more time. Round again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Big one. And I think to the kids to understand the significance of that one, of things change on that big one. Directions change, movements change. And if we're teaching them from a small age, which you are, right through to year 6, they need to have that understanding, that structure. So once they are creating their own movement, they know what they're doing. It's not chaotic. It's all about, well, we know where the music structure is. We know we start there. We know we finish there, and then we can repeat that little block if you want to, or we can start a new block. And it's just so much easier for a teacher, so they can facilitate it and not
the
be.
sooner little ones get it as well, the more enjoyable it is for them to join in with the dance lessons. Like we talked about cats and dogs before, the cats, soon as they get this, they're on board with you. So it's really important.
They realise it's not about being taught the perfect pirouette or having to get down with a killer routine. It's just much more about how they express the music and
enjoy it.
And enjoy it, yeah.
So we're going to use this activity to cement this learning so the children really get to understand what they're doing in a more practical way. We're going to use little coloured spots for the little ones so that we can really get them to move around but still under it in a controlled way. And then after that we'll show you something for the bigger ones in a minute.
So let's have a look at how we can structure this activity for the little ones. So here are Jack and Morgan, waiting for the music to start, and then we'll just get them to bob along to the music, clapping along or slapping their knees, and then walking in between each spot. And we do this for 8 beats each. So 8 beats bobbing along and 8 beats moving to the next spot. Dead easy, really easy to manage, really easy to facilitate. Once you've got them going, you can then start to change up the movement. So they don't clap anymore, they might do something like a roll. So let's have a look. Here we go. I might do that for a couple of bars of 8, counting them through so everyone's really getting to understand the structure. So we might add some jumping a bit further down the line as they're starting to warm up.
It's all about the 8s though, isn't it? It's just about getting those 8 counts over and over into their heads so that they really understand those 8s.
So they're changing the movement on the 1, not necessarily the big one at the moment because they're only little, but really focusing on those 8s when they're little is really useful.
So this next activity we're going to do for older children. We have them in 2 teams, one lying down this side of the room, one line down this side of the room facing each other, and we're going to have a dance off. And the kids absolutely love this because they can really freestyle it out. They can do the moves they want. You're not going to give them any crazy tricky choreography. They come up with the moves all themselves, and it's just about sticking to those blocks of 8, starting on the big one, working in 4 blocks of 8, and then going back to the beginning and starting again on that big one. So it's a really nice way to embed this. So if we have a look at the video, we've got Jack and Morgan showing you this. So we're just at the minute showing them in their 2 lines, marching, ready for the music to start. Getting ready with the introduction, and then they're going to walk towards each other for 8, and they're not going to get too close. They need to stay quite away from each other. Second block of 8, freestyle, whatever they want to do. Third block of 8, move away back to their start position. Fourth block of 8, they give it some attitude. Really simple. And then they go again. First block of 8, in together. Second block of 8, freestyle. Third block of 8, go back to where they started.
Really going for it.
Fourth block of 8, giving it some welly at the end there. You can see there's not tricky moves. The kids are doing their own freestyle moves, and they're just really sticking or trying to stick to those blocks of 8, and it's a really nice way to embed that, isn't it?
It's so easy to facilitate this activity. You can do anything with it. And I think the main thing is that hooking those cats in again, isn't it?
Yeah, letting them have so much fun that they forget that they're actually dancing.
Yeah, and they're all just coming together, they're giving it some kind of attitude, and let's face it, they've got plenty of that. So they're giving it some attitude, they're giving each other some eyeball, and they're really going for it, and it's just so much fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everyone is in stitches by the end of it. And then all of a sudden you are the coolest teacher in town.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, you know, do this as a warm up. You can do it as an entire lesson. We're going to show you how you can theme it in a moment as well. So yeah, absolutely. This is a must for any teacher. So we'd really like to share another version of this particular concept with you. And it's where they start to actually create something that's structured for 8. And we're going to call it the funky handshake walk. Because they'll come in for 8 as normal, and then just give them a few moments to, in a pair, create their own funky handshake, whether it's claps or slaps or booms or whatever they want to do. Give them free rein, because they need to fit it into a block of 8, and this is their first opportunity to start to do a little bit of timing. And it is very funny, isn't it, watching them, because they'll try and fit so much into an 8-count block that they'll start to realise that actually we need to slow this down and make it a little bit more simple. So they start to think about timing. So let's have a look at Jack and Morgan doing theirs. It's exactly the same thing, rather than the freestyle in a little bit when they come in. It's a funky handshake. So here we go. So we're marching on the spot. Walking in, here comes the funky handshake. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Walk back. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then just pose it out at the end. And they love that, and they repeat. They get better and better and better at it, and then before you know it, they've created their own piece of choreography. And again, the cats, they're all over it, aren't they?
Yeah, because
absolutely.
It's not difficult. It's something that they might be doing anyway in the playground. They might already have these crazy funky handshakes or greetings. So it's something that they feel really cool doing, and that they don't feel silly, or they don't feel like, oh, I can't do that because it's not cool enough for me. They feel like, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, and then they start to get competitive as well. I've got the best handshake. Especially like the year 5, year 6 boys. So yeah, it's all very good stuff. So the next one we're going to have a look at is how we theme this concept. And this concept we use a lot, because I think this next one is Romans, and I'm going to hand this one over to you, because you had to think on your feet once, didn't you? And
I did.
This is what came out of it, and so I think this is wonderful.
Well, I'll explain why this came along one day. I went into a school and they said, we need to do Greeks today, and I had all my Greek lesson planning ready, and I had all my videos ready and everything, and they said, oh yes, we've done that already, could you do something different? And I just thought, oh my goodness me, what am I going to do? So we went with this kind of idea of moving in, doing your thing, moving out, doing your thing. This 8 count blocks, 32 count phrase, and we use this as a springboard for the children to use their own ideas. And we had Medusa and a Perseus slaying the Gorgon, and we had all sorts going on, and this all came from the children from this same idea. So this one is them going to be Romans. So again, we've got the 2 lines, we've got a sword and a shield. They march in for 8. Look at those marchers. Now they're going to fight for 8. They're going to have a sword fight, a gladiator fight. They move backwards for 8, back to the start position, and they hold for 8 in a really stern way. Then we progress it, moving in for 8. We've rehearsed this before with the children. They fight, and then somebody's going to be stabbed. One is the winner, and the other one is going to die.
Victorious. There we go.
And that's your 32 count block now, themed as the Romans, still working with those counts of 8, 4 blocks of 8 into a lovely 32 count block. And we actually progressed that into 2 32 count blocks, one where they lived, one where somebody died. So it then became a nice little routine, and the kids absolutely loved that. And again, there was no tricky choreography. There was no sort of, oh, I'm not doing it because it's not cool enough for me. Every child likes to fight and likes somebody to die, don't they, in a war. So it just becomes really engaging for the children, and we don't get anybody sitting out and saying, oh, I don't want to do that.
No. And it's so easy, again, to facilitate. So if you're not a specialist in teaching primary dance, this is going to be so easy for you to boost your confidence, because you'll see that you can deliver a really, really cool session that the kids are so engaged in. And it's the easiest thing, isn't it? It's just understanding that 32 count block. And once you've got that and your theme, you're away, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, super easy. So the last thing I'd like to show you in this concept of the moving in, doing something and moving out and then holding is just using we're going to go high, we're going to go low, we're going to go one leg, we're going to do...
it's just shouting out any random idea for the children, that they have a bit of a guideline rather than just letting them do whatever they want. And it gives them a little bit more structure, doesn't it, to work
and
with.
It's quite good fun as well if you just at the last minute go high and they have to do something that's above their heads. Same again with their posing. So here we go, high up, and then we could shout low, and then off they go in, and they have to get really down, deep and low into their movements. That's lovely. And then back, and then a low pose, and then we might shout one leg, which is always really funny, because you can find that most children have a really bad balance. Although Jack and Morgan are doing quite well, bless them, and off they go, and they have to balance on one leg. So again, just showing you how to really theme this concept. You can do it to death, and it's the easiest thing you can do in the world. So the next part of the workshop is all about getting the children to understand about timing. And the reason we do this is because it's going to help you as a teacher so much when it comes to facilitating the children doing their own choreography and getting them to structure it to that 32 count. So we're not just going to be using the regular beat, we're going to make it much more interesting by helping them to understand that there's a slow beat in that music and there's also a quick beat. So the slow beat is half time of the regular beat. We'll go through this in a moment. And the quick beat is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. There's a little tiny beat in between the regular beat, and that makes the quick beat. So if you've ever had children trying to choreograph something without this knowledge, it is quite funny, because you'll say, right, okay, I'd like you to put together some movement to fit into that 8 count block there. And they'll have no understanding of timing, and so they'll put far too much in, and they'll expect to go from the floor to the roof in one regular beat, and obviously it's just not doable. So by adding to them to do this kind of workshop, it really helps them, and it really helps you when you're facilitating a really good piece of choreography. So you do it slightly different to me though, don't you? So
I do, and simply because if the children are working on the regular beat all the time, it can get quite dull, can't it? Just watching that same almost marching action all the time. So adding these different speeds in can really make it interesting, not only for the people who are watching it, but for the people who are performing as well, because performing on that same beat all the time, it's a bit like a robot or a soldier, isn't it? It's very monotonous. So it makes it a lot more interesting to perform and to watch.
Okay, so what we'll do now, we'll pop some music on, and we'll just clap through those beats just so you're sure of what you're going to teach, and then we're going to show you how to structure this next part of the workshop. Okay, let's pop that samba music back on again. So here we go, we're going to start with the regular beat. That's nice and easy, we've done that loads already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we just get them clapping it out. Maybe do 32 counts. Last block. And then we're going to slow that down. So we're going to go 1 and 3. 1, 3, 5, 7. Maybe ask them to count it out. So it's really clear, really simple. Okay, let's try quick beats. So it's 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 1 and 2. So a little bit quicker, needs a bit more control. Okay then, lovely, thank you. So that is regular, slow and quick. And the reason we do this is so they suddenly start to realise that when we do this next bit of workshop, that a regular beat, yeah, we can do quite a lot of movement in there, but we can get so much more movement in a slow beat. They can get down to the floor, it can be much more dynamic. Then you put a quick beat on and they very, very quickly realise that their movements has to be much smaller and much more concise. Of course, it obviously has to be very, very quick. So they then start to realise that, okay, I want to be using the slower movements, I'm going to use the slow beat. If I want to do something quite sharp and quite choppy, then we'll be working on that quick beat. And then they start to have a whole new world of choreography they can use just by using these 3 beats. It's quite amazing, really.
And I've done this with lots of teachers, and this is often an epiphany for teachers where they go, oh my goodness, I didn't realise that these beats were going on in all the pieces of music that we use, because they're there all the time. You just have to listen and pick them out.
Yeah. So the next thing we want to show you is a little activity around timing and how to structure that. So you will get your group of kids into 3 or 4 and ask them to create a movement that goes nicely with a regular beat, one that goes nicely with the slow beat and another for the quick. And just give them 4 or 5 minutes just to create these movements, nothing complicated, keep it simple. And this will just really help them to understand how much movement they can get nicely into each of those beats. So
it's just one movement over and over again, isn't it? It doesn't have to be, crazy loads of moves. It's just one move that they can repeat.
32 beats.
To really embed that timing into their head.
Yeah, so we'll show you now what we mean rather than just talk about it. So here we go. So here we are with the lovely Gay Holmes and Jack and Morgan, and they are just marching out to the beat. So first of all, we're going to do the regular beat. So we're just marching out, we're rolling high and low to fill the 8 beats. Nothing complicated, nothing
1,
to jazz
2,
hands.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Really hitting that beat every time.
Yeah. And now we're switching to that slow beat. So that's 1, 3, 5 and 7. And we're only kind of doing that 32 count block. So we're always going to change on that big 1. So here comes the quick beat. Here we go, a little wiggle. They've created that so it can just fit into that 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 1. And then we just repeat the whole thing from the regular beat. Here we go. Straight into it. Beautiful transition there, well done. So we complete our 4 blocks of 8, 32 counts, and then when we're ready, and as the teacher, what I would do is always count through the beat to start with, so the kids are absolutely on it. So that 1, 3, 5, 7. Doesn't matter what they're doing, every group will probably be doing something different, which is lovely to see. And then when we're ready, we'll go into our quick beat and off we go again. And get them to repeat this over and over again so they get used to doing their movements, they get used to performing in their little groups, and they get used to changing on that big one in the music. I think that's the key thing, isn't it, for this particular part of the workshop?
Yeah, it's just layering in those skills, isn't it? So going back to what we did with the big one, the 32 count block. So we're still talking about that. We're still working on it, but now we've added in another layer of the different speeds within the music.
Yeah, and that's then it starts to really develop their understanding. Okay, so the next little part is all about cueing. So I just want to show you a slide about this before we begin. So the last part of the music beat and phrase activities is all about cueing, and so it's not only for the teacher to develop this skill, but it's also for the kids to develop this skill and understanding where to start moving in the music and the timing of when we cue into the music. So that 5, 6, 7, 8 and begin. So that's what we mean about cueing. So this is a really lovely way to do this. So you'll set off the kids doing their regular, their slow, their quick movements, but now they'll start to add a layer of understanding of when to bring in that next movement by cueing. So we'll start at the very end of the 32 count block. So that last bar of 8, we'll use that bar of 8 to cue into the big one. So we'll say, slow move, are you ready? 5, 6, 7, 8. Or if it's a quick move next, quick move, are you ready? 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're going to have a look at this. We're going to get the Jack Morgan and Gay doing their stuff, and we'll cue over the top and show you what we mean.
So we've put loads of emphasis on the music, and it is so important and so beneficial to the children, isn't it, for them to really understand this. And it just helps their attitude towards moving to music if they really understand it. It helps them so much. And it builds their confidence, doesn't it? If they get it, they understand it, and they think, yeah, I've got this, I can do this. It makes them super confident when it comes to moving to music.
But it's not just that, it's the kids, but it's the teachers as well. So
absolutely.
The teachers will just find it so much easier when the kids get it, and they're off doing their own thing, and they're coming back with their own ideas. And you'll find a lot of the time you will throughout your dance schemes, you'll be getting so much back from the kids that you'll be, I'm having that for next time, and you'll be just really building up your own kind of resources as well around what the kids are just developing themselves.
They come up with such great ideas, don't they?
Things you would never dream of. And, oh my goodness me, I'm having that because it works so well. So yeah, music is so important. So please don't put it on in the background and allow them to be feathers for 40 minutes because it's just not constructive.
Or pieces of litter.
Yeah, nothing like that, please. So really focus on that music, get the cats engaged, and you'll be off to a flying start.
Brilliant. So the next chapter is all about the actual movements, because we haven't really talked about moving yet, have we? We've talked about just the music and moving to it, but we haven't actually drilled down into any specific movements themselves, and that's what we're going to talk about next. So let's now look at the 6 principles of dance. And this is broken down into the real basic fundamental principles that dance is built from. It's not about starting with pirouettes and pliés or being a fantastic choreographer. It's just about getting the kids to understand these basic fundamental things that all choreography stems from. And with that, they can build absolutely anything, and it makes it so much better for them rather than being spoon-fed all the dancers and all the moves. They're actually coming up with them themselves, which is so much better, and you get so better results, don't you? It's all about them. So the 6 principles of dance are travelling. So you're in one spot and you're moving off the spot, maybe coming back to that spot or moving to a different spot in the room. Turning or rotating is just a change of direction. Jumping or leaping is leaving the ground. Balance and stillness, stillness being like a photograph, balance being unstable and working hard not to fall over. And then all those 4 are your basic fundamental moves. Then you've got moving those moves in different planes or levels, and then adding on some interest with a story, a gesture, or a character, or an idea of who you're meant to be. And with those 6 principles, you can create absolutely anything.
I think as well, so you've got your 32 count music structure, and then you've got your content, which is your 6 principles. You're there, really, aren't you?
You don't need anything else.
You don't. We can theme it, which we're going to show you how to do that. But generally, once you understand what should be in your choreography, you need to be able to travel or turn or jump or add some balance. It makes it much more interesting. So using different levels and planes of movement makes travelling, turning, jumping and balance so much more interesting. And then add a story to that, or a theme or a style, and you've done it. There's your primary dance done. It's not difficult. It's not rocket science. It's probably one of the easiest things you can teach in the end, and the most enjoyable as well. So in a moment, we're going to show you how we're going to theme our movements for the circus. So we have the clown, which we're going to be using levels with turning. We have the tightrope walker, which will be balance and travel. The show horse, so that's lovely, lots of leaping and jumping everywhere and travelling around. And then the strong man, which will be much more about control and balance and using the different levels. So you can see we've used all the different principles of dance. We've just themed them. The kids will probably do this automatically anyway, but if you can see what you're trying to create, and I know some teachers have the 6 principles in big posters on the wall, so the children can say, oh yeah, I've got my travelling steps in and I've got my turning steps in, and they use that as their reference, and that's a really nice way to do it. So that's how you would kind of set it up, really. We'd look at the 6 principles, and then we'd look at how we would theme them. So here are Jack and Morgan showing you how they would do their clown. So here are Jack and Morgan, and they're standing on their coloured spots. We're getting ready to do their regular beat. They're only little. So here we go, they're clowns, they're moving around their spot, using their levels, pretending to juggle, picking their feet up, having a lovely time being a clown. And we'd probably do 32 to 64 counts of this just to get them into it. And then, here we go. We're having a look at their tightrope walker. So they're just demonstrating the moves that the children might come up with, or you might be demonstrating yourself. Nice and easy. So a little bit of a wobble going on. Tightrope walker. Oh, here they go with their show horses. Lovely. Jumping and leaping. Oh, Jack, yes. Lovely little show horse there. Oh, there's the mane. Excellent. And the last one is their strong man. So we're using levels with balance. Lovely.
And that's the slow beat as well.
That's the slow beat, yeah. So we've used lots of different lovely beats, and we've managed to squeeze in the 6 principles. Well done, team.
So when we are teaching these moves, we're going to allow the younger children to do at least 32 counts on one move, and it gives their little brain enough time to get that message down to their body, to get them to do exactly what they should be doing. If you're doing it too quickly, they sort of don't get it, and they're not sure what's going on, and you've moved on before they've had time to really understand and practice what they need to do.
I think if they want to be, if you say to them, we want you to be a clown, they want to be a clown for at least a minute.
Oh yeah, they want to be that clown, don't they?
In the moment, they want to be that clown. You know, they don't want to be a clown for 8 beats. That's no good to them, is it? And it just gives them more time to express themselves. So I think for the younger children, at least 32 counts.
Yeah,
and
or
then,
even 64. They could do two blocks of 32.
Absolutely. Just kind of go with your gut feeling on that.
Yeah, and when they get older, you can start to shorten that. Their brain is a little bit more able to switch moves more quickly, and that's the hard thing. Doing the move is easy. It's the brain telling you need to change moves, and that's the hard thing. So as children get older, you can start to really cut that down, and they can do one move, then another move, shorten that bit by bit. Obviously, don't go straight into that. Cut it down by doing 16 counts, then 8, then 4, and then maybe even 2 if it's something that's really choppy and sharp and really slick. But use them to guide you. Don't do that cutting it right down if they're just not able to get that kind of slickness and they're just sort of all over the place. Then give them chance to really get those moves. But definitely for little ones,
it's the 32
long
count
time,
phrase.
yeah.
I think I use the music as another way to progress. So if you've got a group of children who are really into it and they're really able and really talented, then you would use the music to challenge them a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you wouldn't keep them doing the same movement for 8 beats. You'd do it for 2, 4 or 2. And then you'd speed it up and speed it up and speed it up until they were really having to focus on their timing and not only their performance but their timing. And I think it's a really good way to progress children, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So one of the pain points that we hear a lot is I don't have enough experience to teach dance. I'm not a dance specialist. I don't know how to get my 30 kids doing exactly what I want them to do without it ending up in chaos. And one of the things that we're going to show you now are different teaching methods. So we have 4 lovely teaching methods for you to follow and to choose which one that you perhaps will suit your group. And take it from there. So,
but I think with this, teachers are actually really fearful of teaching dance, aren't they? Especially, like we said, if they've not got a lot of experience in teaching movement, especially to music, it can be absolutely the worst thing on your timetable. You can look at that with absolute dread. But it's so easy to get carried away in the sort of, it's got to be like this and it's got to be like that, but it doesn't. It's about the children expressing themselves and you allowing them to do that. And once you get that in your head, that it's a really fun experience for them and for you, then it will be one of the most enjoyable lessons you teach all week.
Yeah. So let's have a look at the next slide, because these are the things that just bear in mind when you're kind of approaching your dance scheme. So begin with, always start to use a variety of different sources, so it will inspire your children in different ways. So your music will always inspire them, images or flashcards, props, so feather boas, hats, anything you can find, scarves, just to make it more entertaining. And of course, movie is a really good way to demonstrate, and that's why our resources always has, or mostly have, an inspirational movie that you can play with or play directly to your children, and that will help them to either create moves of their own or follow us and understand a bit more technique around a style, for instance. The next thing I would say is only perform the moves that you feel comfortable with. And if you're using imoves resources, then you can always use the movies as a backup if you feel like, actually, I'm not sure that I want to teach the jive today. We'll just let the imoves team teach it for me, and I will structure my lesson accordingly after we've learned the moves. And then we're going to show you some lovely teaching methods. We're going to have 4 teaching methods we'd like to show you now. So if you follow one of the next 4 teaching methods, you'll be absolutely flying. So the first teaching method we'll look at is adding on, and this is a really good one to use, particularly for the little ones where you need a little bit more control, a little bit more hand holding. You might use it for the older ones if you're teaching them something that's a set piece of choreography and you need to teach them one little bit, then add another bit on, then go back to the beginning, then add another little bit on and go back to the beginning. It's like teaching any kind of subject. You'll always start with the basics and add a little bit on and then always review it. And it's just the same concept, but using dance. So
I was just going to say, I think this works if you're doing a performance, maybe an end of term performance like a summer show or a Christmas play or something.
Yeah.
The children will always do the moves in the same order to this piece of music because it's what the choreography requires. So you're never going to ask them to change the order. It's always going to be that move for the same amount of time so that it fits perfectly to the music. So this is a great way to teach them that kind of routine. routine.
Yeah, and add-on, I suppose, is we'll do this first because I suppose it's the trickiest, isn't it? But it's not too tricky, so don't worry.
Yeah.
So we're going to go back to this circus idea that Jack and Morgan demonstrated earlier for you. So we're going to have a look at practicing move 1, which is the clown. Okay. So we'd start by teaching and introducing move 1, and that would be our clown. So we teach move 1, practice, 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 get them doing it to the music. When they all feel comfortable, we then introduce move 2, and then that would be the tightrope walker. So then we get them to have another practice, maybe do 2 or 3 minutes on that movement, and then we get them to slot them together, looking at that little transition between move 1 and move 2. So it will be the clown for 32 counts, moving around their spot, and then followed by their tightrope walker. So once you've got them doing that, maybe practice that 2 or 3 times, and then you can then introduce move 3 and do exactly the same thing. Practice, 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 move back to move 1, followed by move 2, followed by move 3, and then finally adding on your 4th move, doing exactly the same, practicing maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and then moving back into move 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we'll just kind of have a look at that in action, just to explain it a little bit better. So here are Jack and Morgan doing their clown, finding the regular beat in the music, and off we go. 5, 6, 7, 8, and off we go. Using lovely levels, travelling around, turning. Encourage the kids to be really expressive, doing really dynamic movements as well.
Big strong movements, yeah.
Wonderful. And they might do this for 32 counts or 64 counts, however long you need them to do that for, until you feel confident to move on.
So this one is the tightrope walker, and you can see they're just beating out that regular beat again, just to get themselves listening to that beat. And then off they go. This time they're balancing, they're travelling, but also they're using the slow beat. Travelling
really nice
across.
On this.
Yeah.
And they love doing this, don't they?
Yeah. And they're sort of acting as well, aren't they? They're pretending that they're wobbling, pretending that they're up on that tightrope, so it's really fun for the children. So this is Jack and Morgan showing you how the add-on of move 1 followed by move 2 will look, showing that transition between the moves so that the children really understand how to move from one move into the next. So they're going to start off by hitting their legs, getting that beat into their heads, counting out 5, 6, 7, 8, and off we go. With the clown, still doing those lovely levels, still making really big strong movements, really enjoying it, having a great time. And then off we go into the tightrope straight away. There's no break, straight into it, and that's really important for that flow and that really interesting look of the piece.
And it also helps them to understand, oh, it's the big one coming up, here we go, let's change our move.
Yeah.
And that's a really nice way to demonstrate it as well. The next one is the show horse. So here we go. We're going to be passing out the beat. And this one is going to be looking at jumping and leaping and travelling around the room. So off we go. Lovely mane there from Morgan. And a little bit of a kick from Jack. Show jump. Oh, very nice. And there we go. So again, you'd practice that for as long as you need to.
And these moves aren't set in stone, are they? They are just literally an idea. Yeah. The children can come up with their own interpretation of these moves for the different characters in the story, can't they?
And all you would do as a teacher is say, okay, we're going to be a show horse, and what we need to get in there is a little bit of jumping, a little bit of leaping, and a little bit of travelling around the room. So give them the brief and allow them to come up with their own lovely stuff.
So this one is the strong man. Again, they're working on that regular beat just to get that beat in their head. But when they start, they're going to go on the slow beat. So just check that out when you see it. They're going on that slow beat, using the levels all the way down, bringing the weight up, and then balancing on their toes. So lots going on in this particular strongman activity.
But again, it's not set in stone, that's just our ideas. They can do anything they like, as long as it includes a little bit of balance and they're moving up and down. So that's the brief that you would give them. So it's really, really simple, and the kids just come up with their own lovely stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now, once we've put all our movements together, so we've practiced move 1, we've linked it to move 2, we've practiced move 3, we've linked that, we've practiced move 4 and we've linked that. So it's now time to put our 4 movements together. So here are a lovely Jackie Morgan showing you how to do this. So finding the beat and the phrase in the music, and off they go. And it's all about just now encouraging the children to do lovely big strong movements and be really expressive in the movements that they're doing. And then counting them in to do their tightrope walker. Lovely. So again, encouraging the children, working on that slow beat. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here comes the show horse. Off they go and round.
And you can see how using those 6 principles makes the choreography look really interesting. It's not all the same, it's not all on the regular beat, it just adds a level of interest, doesn't it?
Are we ready for strongman? Down. And pushing up. I love how Jack expressed himself here, look. Really blowing his little cheeks
working
out.
hard,
He's really
isn't he?
working hard. Pushing up that imaginary weight. and we're finished. And so there you go, that's a lovely demonstration of how you would link 4 movements together in a lovely sequence for the kids just to follow along.
So the next teaching method we're going to have a look at is creative freestyle, and this is where the children create all the moves themselves. You just give them the brief, you give them the characters that you want them to be, and let them go.
So what we do is we maybe have a discussion with the children about each character individually. So say we'll start with the clown. So we'll talk about how a clown might move. Would they travel? Would they fall over? Would they juggle? What kind of movements would they do? We'd all have a little chat, and then you get them into groups, maybe 3 or 4, and then off you go. They'd have a playtime, if you like, of putting their own slant on it, using the type of ideas that you've discussed, and then back in a group, have another discussion about what's happening next. So the tightrope walker, for instance, would they be using balance? What kind of movements would they do? Share and show good ideas. That's always a nice thing to do, to inspire the children who are thinking, I have no idea what I'm doing. But then obviously if you've done a little bit of modelling, or you've asked the children to do some modelling, that is a really nice way to do it. And then off they go again into their little groups, building up their little toolkit, if you like, of movement. And then you'll do this, you'll have a discussion for each character that you want to build. And then at the end of it all, they will just put all their movements together in any order they like for however long they want. So if it's 32 counts, fantastic. If it's more than 32 counts, that's great. It's up to them. That's the whole point. It's their show, isn't it? It's their routine, and they own it.
And you can really ask the children, how might the clown travel? How might he jump? How might he go down into a low level? And that really gives them some variety in their moves,
scope,
rather than all being looking the same. Really changing up the look of each move.
Yeah. But that's a really nice way to do it, and it takes the onus off you having to create movements for them to follow. So this is so different from add-on, isn't it? Because it's all about them making up their own stuff, putting it into an order that's just theirs, rather than using add-on, which is much more structured. You'll do this move, followed by this move, followed by this move. It's completely different, but it really works well.
And it gives the children creative ownership, doesn't it? It's their dance, they've created it from scratch.
Yeah.
And they feel so proud of that, don't they, when they've done it?
They do. So a variation of the creative freestyle could do it in a circuit approach, and I've used this with the really little ones, and just gives them more structure to the lesson, where I've had my hall set out with stations, if you like. So I might have my strongmen in one corner, my horses in another, tightrope walkers and clowns. So maybe 4, even 6 stations, depending on their age range and how much they can cope with in a lesson. But each station, each group would be focused on their character, and they'd be coming up with ideas within their group around their character, and they may spend 2 or 3 minutes on each station before moving them in a clockwise direction, which is a really nice way just to keep them moving. And so that once you've done all 4 or 6 circuit cards and they've got loads of ideas, we then come into the centre and we pool our ideas as a group. So what if we all did, how did we imagine our horses to be moving around, and then maybe have some lovely show and share ideas from the kids. And then once we've done all of that, we might pick out 4 or 6 of the best movements that we collectively agree on, and then put them all together in the order that they agree on, depending on how the movement might transition from one to the other. So they're thinking about how they put it all together, which is lovely. So they've created it, and you've just facilitated that performance at the end. So they have complete ownership of it, really.
Yeah.
But as a teacher, all you would then do is facilitate by moving to each station within each group, and just have a chat with them about what are your ideas, how would you use this, how would a horse move, how would a clown move. So you can be inspiring each group, but in your own way, in your own time, and pulling ideas that you've seen previously as well. So it's a really nice way to do this.
Those flashcards as well is really lovely, because it inspires the children. And if they're not sure, oh, I can't remember what a clown looks like, oh, I can see that clown, I remember now, I know what kind of things he might do. So it's a really nice way to get them to really get into those characters.
Yeah, so that's freestyle circuits.
So far, we've just looked at topic-based teaching methods where the children are creating lots of moves themselves. But this is not going to be any good when you need to look at more dance styles where there's technique involved. So the next teaching methods we're going to look at is all about teaching things like Bollywood, Charleston, disco, where you've actually got moves that are set. So the next move we're going to look at is structured moves followed by a creative task, which is 3 or 4 moves depending on the time you have. They learn these structured set moves, and then they go off in a creative little bubble and create their choreography. So they can put those moves in any order they like, they can do them for as long as they like, and they can even start to put them in some kind of formation, can't they?
Which is really nice.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at an example of disco. We're just going to show you a little movie clip of our interactive movie showing the kids 4 disco moves, and then we'll show them how we could use a brief for them to put them together in little, like you say, little creative bubble. Wash your hair. Roll and point. Lawnmower. Disco roll, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, point. Maracas.
So So once the children have learnt their structured moves, we then go on to the creative part of the task, and this is how it would be done. So thinking about formations, about really looking interesting for the audience. So when the audience is watching, there's people here, oh, it's all changing, the patterns are changing, and it looks really interesting and amazing.
Yeah, and I think one thing to just kind of set to start with is get them to understand where the audience is going to be in the room. So if that's facing where you're teaching, then to have a circle formation is not going to work, because someone will inevitably have their back to the audience. So semicircles work nicely, diamonds, triangular or a V, one behind the other, maybe a diagonal line formation. So give them some ideas on where to start, and say, well, you know, this is going to be your starting position, your starting formation.
Yeah, lovely. So they can perform their moves in any order as well. It doesn't have to be the order they learnt them in. They can mix them around. They can perform one move at the beginning and do it again at the end if it's a particular move they like. They can adapt them, they can make them into a canon. So things like where one child goes, then another child goes, then the next child goes. It's a bit like a Mexican wave, isn't it? So you can get that flowing wave of movement.
Which looks really effective, doesn't it? And it's so simple to do.
Absolutely. And that takes quite a bit of time in their routine as well, doesn't it? So they can really make the routine nice and long without it becoming boring, because there's lots of action going on. And also they need to think about balancing the routine equally, so it doesn't all travel one way and they all end up in a pile in one corner. They're using the space, and they're moving forward and backwards, side to side, and really making it a really nice spectacle for the audience to watch.
I think if they've got a central space they're working with, reiterate that if they're moving forward, they need to move back. If they're moving right, they need to move left or back to centre. So it's almost like having a coloured spot, isn't it, on the floor, but for the entire group, so they know where they're working for. And then they're not going to crash into other groups in the room and take up their dance space. So if we just have a little chat about that, then I think it helps them, doesn't it, to formate, to put their formations together really nicely and safely.
Yeah. So as you've already taught the children about the music structure, the timing, the principles of dance, all those building blocks, they will be able to take these moves and just run with them and be really creative without having to worry about those counts of 8 anymore, because they are so embedded already. They're just now focused on the really interesting stuff, aren't they? And
you can hear them counting each other in, can't you? It's lovely. You think, yes, I have done my job. They know what they're doing. And just a quick reference to the cats and dogs that we've been mentioning all the way through this, is that when you're getting them into little groups, always mix up your cats with your dogs, because the dogs will fly, won't they, and do a great job, and that'll kind of intimidate the cats somewhat, and they'll be off being a nuisance at the back of the room. We don't want that. We want everyone engaged on this lovely Bollywood journey or disco journey or whatever journey you're taking them down. So mix them up, and then the dogs will just inspire the cats and bring them along and help them develop. And it's a much more pleasurable experience than having them separated and them not doing so well. Yeah. So our final teaching method is something called pose and transition, and I love this because it's so simple to use. You could use a set of flashcards, or the children could develop their poses as an individual group. It's totally up to you how you do this, but I use flashcards because it inspires the children. So you might have per lesson 4 poses. So they'd develop and create their poses using their flashcards, practice standing and balancing in their pose, not falling over, looking expressive, getting it absolutely right, and then before moving on to their second pose or third pose and fourth pose. So have your poses almost in the bag. The transition part is very much that comes a bit later on, doesn't it? So you get your poses in place and you practice those first. And then we think, okay, then how are we going to link pose 1 with pose 2? So we have pose 1 will be 8 beats, and then your transition will be another 8 beats. Your pose 2 will be another 8 beats, and that will be a transition into pose 3. So those four blocks of 8 are pose, transition, pose, transition. So it's very much we know they understand their blocks of 8 because we've taught it them to death. And now it's all about them creating that pose and transitioning into the next pose. So it is super simple, really easy to facilitate. So you've got anybody in school who is, I really don't want to teach dance, this is the one to start them off with, because they don't have to do any movement. It's just about understanding the structure of the movement, the music, sorry.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at how this will kind of pan out, because we can now start to bring in the 6 principles of dance with this, because we've got the balance already in place. That's the posing. So the transition could be, this time between pose 1 and 2, we're going to use a travelling and a jumping transition. And that's their brief. They come up with that all by themselves, and then we practice that. And then between pose 2 and 3, it might be a turning with jumping transition. And so you can really mix it up. They're doing the same, they're all performing the same brief, but in their own way, and it looks absolutely amazing when it's done. And it looks
really slick, because they know to hit that pose on count 1 of the block of 8, and then they can move for the next block of 8 and then hit it again, and it just looks so stunning, doesn't it?
It does. So we're going to show you, our theme is going to be Bollywood, and we're going to show you how it might look when the kids have put it together. So here we are. We're in a formation, and we're going to hit it on count 1. How beautiful they look. And we're moving for 8 beats. A little jumping, turning transition. Pose 2.
Holding it for 8.
Yeah. Travelling and turning. Pose 3. And I think we're going back into pose 1 again. And we repeat. Pose 1. And that's how it can look. It is so simple. Off we go again. So it's choreographed, but it's not overly choreographed. And each group looks really, really slick. Very well done. Holding those poses, and they can repeat and repeat and repeat until they absolutely nail it. And you'll be surprised at how the boys get involved in this. It's actually really amazing. Sometimes the boys outperform the girls, don't they?
Absolutely.
Get really involved in it, and especially if you've put them, with somebody who's really into dance, and they've been the cats, and then they've suddenly shone because actually they can do it. It's their stuff. They're only performing things that they can do, not something that you're asking them to do, and then they can't get their body to move like yours. And suddenly I've had a little boy come up to me and say, "Oh, miss, that was the most amazing PE lesson I've ever had. It's much better than football." I was like, oh, yes. And that to me was just amazing, because he was the cat at the back of the room. He was the one just wanting to go out and play football. And then at the end, he came up and went, "Actually, this is something I've really enjoyed, and I'd love to have more of that in my life." So, marvellous. So just to reiterate, with pose and transition, you teach the poses first, or let the kids develop their poses first, and then you put in your transitions with a little bit of a brief around them. Are they turning? Are they jumping? Are they leaping? Whatever you want them to do, you'll put the transitions in once they've learnt the poses. And I think that's the best way to do it, isn't it? And depending on the style that you're using, this is Bollywood, but it could be anything. It could be disco or Egyptians or the Romans or anything you like, really. It's just a really nice teaching method to use.
And really effective, as you've just seen.
Yeah. So the imoves teaching methods that we've discussed today are adding on, which is structured movements in a particular order that might be just wanting to have a performance piece, or it might just be because you want to keep the kids in a bit more order or control. You've got your freestyle, which is your creative freestyle, and your freestyle circuits. You've got your structured movements with creative tasks, which we've just done in disco. And then you've got your pose and transition, which we've just shown you for Bollywood as well. So those 4 teaching methods are so useful to have in your toolkit, and they're great for 4 to 11 years.
And the best thing about those is that any teacher can teach any of those. You can get one that you feel really confident with, whether it's you joining in, or just showing a movie, or just showing a card. whatever your skill level, there's something there for you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So if you weren't very confident and you wanted to just use the flashcards and use the pose and transition, that's somewhere to start. You'd feel much more confident after you taught a few sessions like that. Or if you felt, you know what, actually, I'm going to start teaching a style now. You can use our movies to help you demonstrate the technical bit, if you like, and then just use our planning to help you structure that lesson. It is so easy with imoves, guys. So yeah, it's definitely worth having a look. So just to round this up then, a little bit of a deep dive into the children's mindset around the motivations to be part of a dance lesson, particularly if they're a cat. So we'll just take a deeper dive into that and look at how we can really engage those difficult cats, and so we can banish any ideas that dance is just for ballerinas and tutus and ballet shoes and stuff.
Yeah. So in all our years of experience, we found that the sort of 9 to 11-year-old boys can be the trickiest little cats, can't they?
Quite challenging.
Yes, and they often think that dance isn't very cool, so it's not for them. So if we can get them on board and we can win them over, then they often become the most enthusiastic of all, because they've actually realised that it is fun, they are enjoying it, and it's something
cool.
that they can do, and it's cool, yeah. So we're going to share with you a few little tricks that we've got to win them over.
So first of all, you want to choose your music and your characters that are really up to date. So nice modern music, and this will automatically, from the beginning, really excite the cats. They like to feel cool and grown up, so try not to kind of use topics that they'll feel embarrassed by, and we're going to have a look at some topics in a moment. And then we know that once they've had that positive experience with dance, that they realise it isn't kind of boring or it's just for girls, that they're willing to try the styles. So you can start them off with gladiators or the Romans or something quite macho, and then by the next dance scheme you say, right, okay, then let's have a go at jive, and they're quite willing to hold a girl's hand, no less, and do all those things. So if you've got tricky cats in your year groups, then these are the topics to start with.
Okay, so anything that's war or fighting or combat themed, like gladiators, Vikings, World War One and Two, if you're doing a topic based one, or martial arts, really go down well. Boys just come to life, don't they, if they feel like they are creating their own kind of fight sequence or something like that. To make it safer, I often use this sort of matrix style,
non-combat,
definitely non-contact, and slow motion as well.
Yeah.
Really can make it so that they are controlled. They're using their muscles, they're using their brain to think about where their arms and legs are going, and it's also a lot safer. But they do feel like it's cool, don't they, to do this kind of dance fighting kind of stuff.
And it's also because they're non-contact. They're using each other as a prop, aren't they? Because they're having to work around that other person who's doing their choreography quite close to them, but they need to be moving out the way in time, and it needs to look really realistic. And you can see them getting so engaged in what they're doing. It's lovely. So anything like that is really good for those tricky cats. Yeah, particularly those male cats.
Yes. We always have trouble with male cats, don't we? So also sporty themes to music, anything to do with football, choreography, or any kind of sports-based dance styles go down really well with the boys, because it's something they understand. They've done that in PE, so they go, oh yeah, I can do that. I feel confident with that. Putting it to music adds another level and another sort of layer of trickiness on top, because now they've got to work in counts of 8 or they've got to work in time. It's still dance because they've got that added layer of musicality on there.
We've got quite a few sporty-based ones, haven't we? Combat-based resources, but we've put together something called Sports Jam with an ex-footballer called Richard Hawke, who's a wonderful guy. He's then gone into dance. Odd combination, but we'll go with it because he uses a football, so that's his prop, and he does everything in counts of 8, doesn't he? right through from just tapping the ball, moving around the ball, to actually kneeing the ball on the eights and kind of doing chess and headers and all sorts of wonderful little routines and choreography using the ball. And it's so inspirational. And I've seen a group of young boys in a hall at lunchtime following Richard and having the most amazing time. You know, usually they'd be outside having a fisticuffs with each other, where actually they're not. They're helping each other out and trying to get it just right, just on time. Because they can see how inspirational Richard looks, and it's wonderful, isn't it, to see it? And then all of a sudden, it's cool, and you know they can see them tapping out the beat in the playground afterwards. It's great fun. So that's anything to do with sport is great.
There's also hip-hop based activities. Hip-hop, street dance, all that kind of stuff is massive, isn't it, at the moment? And you've got lots of great role models out there that are doing lots of stuff on the TV that are all really cool, and the boys really enjoy watching them. So anything to do with that is really popular, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah.
And then lastly, you've got fitness and strength activities. So things like boot camp, things like fitness classes, all that kind of stuff really appeal to the boys, because they think, oh, I'm going to get some muscles, I'm going to get strong, and they just will absolutely love it, won't they?
But put it to music, and then they start to get how music can not only encourage them to work harder, but just it creates just a bit more fun, doesn't it? It's not as
a
boring.
much nicer atmosphere, isn't it?
And then everyone's doing the same thing. It's wonderful. So anything like that will really appeal to your male cats, who are the tricky ones at the back, causing a little bit of bother because they think, oh, I don't want to dance. But now you have some tools in your toolkit, just in case you have one or two come along that you need to engage.
So we're just going to have a little talk about assessment, because obviously you have to assess this as part of your PE curriculum, and you need to know how to do that. And we've made this as simple as we possibly could. So for assessment, we favour using a simple point-in-time assessment approach, as it's easy to implement at the end of every half term or at the end of every unit of dance that you might do. The main things to look out for are specific dance skills, creative performance, technique and timing. And then also looking at wider outcomes, focusing on engagement and working well with others. The imoves PE assessment tool is super easy to use and to record the whole school's progress in dance, gymnastics, games, OAA and children's Pilates.
Another pain point that I hear from teachers is that I have not got the time to prepare new dance resources. This is all lovely, but where have I got the time? So here we go. Do you or your teaching colleagues find the prospect of teaching primary dance a little daunting? Maybe you feel like you have no real experience or understanding of where to start, what music to use, or how to teach the techniques. Many teachers I have worked with over the past 20 years in schools have felt like this. And that's why I created imoves Dance, to help teachers just like you develop their own skills and enjoy teaching amazing dance lessons super confidently.
The first thing I realised is that I don't need to be a professional dance teacher to teach primary dance. Using the imoves approach, I found that teaching dance to my class, armed with imoves, is super easy, and the kids absolutely loved it too.
Having worked with so many teachers, all with the same worries around delivering dance, know you are in safe hands as an imoves Dance member. You'll get access to our beautifully presented dance technique and inspiration movies to support you teaching all the tricky stuff. Our music is vibrant, modern and brilliantly designed to help children move in time to the music easily. Lesson plans and flashcards help you to structure the creative tasks into a confident performance.
The online CPD sessions really helped me to develop my dance teaching skills, and particularly around movement to music and beat and phrase. Imogen includes simple starter activities on all lesson plans around teaching children all about music structure to help them choreograph their own sequences so much more effectively. Honestly, once they had learned all of that, all I had to do was encourage them and then watch them go. It's amazing.
You'll get age-appropriate resources for each school year and resources that are suitable for every child, irrespective of their confidence or skill level. Our Free for Life account gives you access to a core selection of our resources with no commitment. And as a special welcome bonus, you'll also get 14 days complimentary access to our premium resources.
So why not join now and do what I did and give it a go? Just enter your details here and let's get active every day.
In this workshop, we've looked at how you can feel much more confident around teaching dance at primary level. And the 6 areas that we focused on, which will really help. One is the music, which is the absolute foundation of teaching dance. The content, which is the 6 principles of dance, the travelling, the turning, jumping, leaping, balance, all of that. Then how we theme it and tell a story. The teaching methods, the add-on, the structured movements, the creative tasks, the post-transition, all of that we looked at to help you deliver a really, really solid lesson. And then the cats and dogs and how the kids feel about it, what their motivation is, what their mindset is. We've had a quick look at assessment and then your supporting resources and how to get onto the imoves platform effectively and easily to find everything that you need to get you going tomorrow if you wanted to teach your dance tomorrow. So I think it's time to say goodbye.
Yes, I hope you've had a really good time with us. We've really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I hope you've got lots out of it, and I hope it's really helped you to start on your dance teaching journey.
And please get in touch if you want any advice around teaching dance at primary level. We're always at the end of a phone or at the end of an email, so you can always just send us a quick note and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. But good luck teaching. It's so wonderfully easy when you use our approaches and use our really super simple resources to help you structure your lessons. So off you go. Happy teaching, and
let us know how you get on.
Yeah, please do. Take care and we'll see you next time.
Bye.